The Mongol invasion of Europe in the 13th century was the military effort by an Asian power, the Mongols, to invade and conquer Europe. It involved the severe and rampant destruction of East Slavic principalities and major cities, such as Kiev and Vladimir. Mongol invasions also affected Central Europe, warring with the Kingdom of Hungary and causing the fragmentation of Poland. The operations were masterminded by General Subutai and commanded by Batu Khan and Kadan, both grandsons of Genghis Khan. As a result of the successful invasions, many of the conquered territories would become part of the Golden Horde Empire. Historians regard the Mongol raids and invasions as some of the deadliest conflicts in human history up through that period. Warring European princes realized they had to cooperate in the face of a threatened Mongol invasion, so local wars and conflicts were suspended in parts of Central Europe, only to be resumed after the Mongols had withdrawn. Invasions and conquest of Rus lands. Genghis Khan ordered Batu Khan to conquer Rus in 1235. The main force, headed by Jochi's sons, and the cousins, Monki Khan and Guluk Khan, arrived at Ryazan in December 1237. Ryazan refused to surrender, and the Mongols sacked it and then stormed Susdalia. Many Rus armies were defeated. Grand Prince Yuri was killed on the Sit River. Major cities such as Vladimir, Torzhok, and Kazetsk were captured. Afterward, the Mongols turned their attention to the steppe, crushing the Kyivchaks and the Alans and sacking Crimea. Batu appeared in Ukraine in 1239, sacking Pereyaslav and Chernihiv. Most of the Rus princes fled when it became clear resistance was futile. The Mongols sacked Kiev on December 6, 1240 and conquered Gallic and Volodymyr Volynski. Batu sent a small detachment to probe the Poles before passing on to Central Europe. One column was routed by the Poles while the other defeated the Polish army and returned. The Mongols had acquired Chinese gunpowder, which they deployed in battle during the invasion of Europe to great success. Invasion into Central Europe. The attack on Europe was planned and executed by Subutai, who achieved perhaps his most lasting fame with his victories there. Having devastated the various Rus principalities, he sent spies into Poland and Hungary, and as far as eastern Austria, in preparation for an attack into the heartland of Europe. Having a clear picture of the European kingdoms, he prepared an attack nominally commanded by Batu Khan and two other familial-related princes. Batu Khan, son of Jochi, was the overall leader, but Subutai was the strategist and commander in the field, and as such, was present in both the northern and southern campaigns against Rus principalities. He also commanded the central column that moved against Hungary, while Kadan's northern force won the Battle of Legnica and Guyuk's army triumphed in Transylvania. Subutai was waiting for them on the Hungarian plain. The newly reunited army then withdrew to the Savo River, where they inflicted a decisive defeat on King Bkkbrad IV of Hungary at the Battle of Mohi. Again, Subutai masterminded the operation, and it would prove one of his greatest victories. Invasion of fragmented Poland. The Mongols invaded Central Europe with three armies. One army defeated an alliance which included forces from fragmented Poland and members of various Christian military orders, led by Henry II the Pious, Duke of Silesia, in the Battle of Legnica. A second army crossed the Carpathian Mountains and a third followed the Danube. The armies regrouped and crushed Hungary in 1241, defeating the Hungarian army at the Battle of Mohi on April 11, 1241. The devastating Mongol invasion killed half of Hungary's then population. The armies swept the plains of Hungary over the summer and in the spring of 1242, regained impetus and extended the control into Austria and Dalmatia and Moravia. The Great Khan had, however, died in December 1241, and on hearing the news, all the princes of the blood of Genghis Khan went back to Mongolia to elect the new Khan. After sacking Kiev, Batu Khan sent a smaller group of troops to Poland, destroying Lublin and defeating an inferior Polish army. Other elements not part of the main Mongol force saw difficulty near the Polish-Gallic border. As for Poland, the Mongols were just passing through and the efforts of King Wenceslas amounted to little in Mongol strategic considerations. The Mongols then reached Polanyek on the Zrnahadze, where they set up camp. There the voivode attacked them with the remaining Krakowian knights, which were few in number, but determined to vanquish the invader or die. Surprise gave the Poles an initial advantage and they managed to kill many Mongol soldiers. When the invaders realized the actual numerical weakness of the Poles, they regrouped, broke through the Polish ranks and defeated them. During the fighting, many Polish prisoners of war found ways to escape and hide in the nearby woods. The Polish defeat was partly influenced by the initially successful Polish knights having been distracted by looting. Invasion of the Kingdom of Hungary. The Hungarians had first learned about the Mongol threat in 1229, when King Andrew II granted asylum to some fleeing Russian boyars. Some Magyars, left behind during the main migration to the Pannonian Basin, still lived on the banks of the upper Volga. In 1237 a Dominican friar, Julianus, set off on an expedition to lead them back, and was sent back to King Bkkbrad with a letter from Batu Khan. In this letter, Batu called upon the Hungarian king to surrender his kingdom unconditionally to the Tatar forces or face complete destruction. Bkkbrad did not reply, and two more messages were later delivered to Hungary. The first, in 1239, was sent by the defeated Cuman tribes, who asked for and received asylum in Hungary. The second was sent in February 1241 by the defeated Polish princes. Only then did King Bkkbrad call upon his magnates to join his army in defense of the country. He also asked the papacy and the Western European rulers for help. Foreign help came in the form of a small knight detachment under the leadership of Frederick II, Duke of Austria, but it was too small to change the outcome of the campaign. The majority of the Hungarian magnates also did not realize the urgency of the matter. Some may have hoped that a defeat of the royal army would force Bkkbrad to discontinue his centralization efforts and thus strengthen their own power. Although the Mongol danger was real and imminent, Hungary was not prepared to deal with it. In the minds of a people who had lived free from nomadic invasions for the last few hundred years, an invasion seemed impossible, and Hungary was no longer a predominantly soldier population. Only rich nobles were trained as heavy armored cavalry. The Hungarians had long since forgotten the light cavalry strategy and tactics of their ancestors, which were similar to those now used by the Mongols, as well as by the predecessors, the Huns. The Hungarian army was made up of individual knights with tactical knowledge, discipline, and talented commanders. Because his army was not experienced in nomadic warfare, King Bkkbrad welcomed the Cuman King Kadan and his fighters. However, the Cuman invitation proved detrimental as Batu Khan justified his invasion of Hungary as Bkkbrad giving asylum to the Cumans, a group Batu Khan regarded as rebels and traitors to the Mongol Empire. After rumors began to circulate in Hungary that the Cumans were agents of the Mongols, some hot-headed Hungarians attacked attacked the Cuman camp and killed Kottoni. This led the enraged Cumans to ride south, looting, ravaging the countryside, and slaughtering the unsuspecting Magyar population. The Austrian troops retreated to Austria shortly thereafter to gain more Western aid. The Hungarians now stood alone in the defense of the country. The Hungarian army arrived and encamped at the Hunad River on April 10, 1241, without having been directly challenged by the Mongols. The Mongols began their attack the next night. Quickly it was clear the Hungarians were lost, while the king escaped with the help of his bodyguard. The remaining Hungarian army was mercilessly killed by the Mongols or drowned in the river as they attempted escape. The Mongols now systematically occupied the Great Hungarian Plains, the slopes of the northern Carpathian Mountains, and Transylvania. Where they found local resistance, they ruthlessly killed the population. Where the locale offered no resistance, they forced the men into servitude in the Mongol army. Still, tens of thousands avoided Mongol domination by taking refuge behind the walls of the few existing fortresses or by hiding in the forests or large marshes along the rivers. The Mongols, instead of leaving the defenseless and helpless people and continuing their campaign through Pannonia to Western Europe, spent the entire summer and fall securing and pacifying the occupied territories. On Christmas Day 1241, the Mongols' siege of Esztergom destroyed the capital and economic center of the Kingdom of Hungary, forcing the capital to be moved to Budapest. During the winter, contrary to the traditional strategy of nomadic armies which started campaigns only in springtime, they crossed the Danube and continued the systematic occupation, including Pannonia. They eventually reached the Austrian borders and the Adriatic shores in Dalmatia. The Mongols appointed a Darfachi in Hungary and minted coins in the name of Kagan. According to Michael Proudhon, the country of Bkkbrad was assigned to Ordar by Batu as an appanage. At least 20% to 40% of the population died by slaughter or epidemic. Rogerius of Apulia, an Italian monk and chronicler who witnessed and survived the invasion, pointed out not only the genocidal element of the occupation, but also that the Mongols especially found pleasure in humiliating local women. But while the Mongols claimed control of Hungary, they could not occupy fortified cities such as Fejevar, Veszprém, Tihany, Jaya, Pannonhalma, Moson, Sopron, Vasavar, Ushli, Zala, Eliakut K at Pozsony, Nyitra, Komarom, Fulek Abayuvar. Learning from this lesson, fortresses came to play a significant role in Hungary. King Bkkbrad IV rebuilt the country and invested in fortifications. Facing a shortage of money, he welcomed the settlement of Jewish families, investors, and tradesmen, granting them citizenship rights. The king also welcomed tens of thousands of Kun who had fled the country before the invasion. Chinese fire arrows were deployed by Mongols against city of Buda in December 25, 1241, which they overran. During the spring of 1242, Bkkbrad Khan died at the age of 56 after a binge of drinking during a hunting trip. Batu Khan, who was one of the contenders to the imperial throne, returned at once with his armies to Asia, leaving the whole of Eastern Europe depopulated and in ruins. But because of his withdrawal, Western Europe escaped unscathed. Some Hungarian historians claim that Hungary's long resistance against the Mongols actually saved Western Europe, though many Western European historians reject this interpretation. They point out that the Mongols evacuated Hungary of their own free will. Other European and American historians have questioned whether the Mongols would have been able to, or even wished to, continue their invasion into Europe west of the Hungarian plain at all, given the logistical situation in Europe and the need to keep large number of horses in the field to retain the strategic mobility. Another theory is that weather data preserved in tree rings points to a series of warm, dry summers in the region until 1242. When temperatures dropped and rainfall increased, the local climate shifted to a wetter and colder environment. That, in turn, caused flooding of the formerly dry grasslands and created a marshy terrain. Those conditions would have been less than ideal for the nomadic Mongol cavalry and their encampments, reducing the mobility and pastureland, curtailing their invasion into Europe west of the Hungarian plain, and hastening the retreat. The Mongolian invasion taught the Magyars a simple lesson. Although the Mongols had destroyed the countryside, the forts and fortified cities had survived. To improve the defense capabilities for the future, they had to build forts, not only on the borders but also inside the country. During the remaining decades of the 13th century and throughout the 14th century, the kings donated more and more royal land to the magnates with the condition that they build forts and ensure the defenses. Invasion of the Kingdom of Croatia. During the Middle Ages, the Kingdom of Croatia was in a personal union with the Kingdom of Hungary, with Bkkbrad as a king. When routed on the banks of the Sava River in 1241 by the Mongols, Bkkbrad fled to today's Zagreb in Croatia. Batu sent a few Cumans under Kadan in pursuit of Bela. The major objective was not the conquest but the capture of the Arpad king. The poorly fortified Zagreb was unable to resist the invasion and was destroyed, its cathedral burned by Mongols. In preparation for a second invasion, Bkkbrad was granted a royal charter, a golden bull of 1242 by King Bkkbrad IV, after which citizens of Zagreb engaged in building defensive walls and towers around the settlement. The Mongols' pursuit of Bkkbrad continued from Zagreb through Pannonia to Dalmatia. While in pursuit, the Mongols under the leadership of Kadan suffered a major defeat at Kali's fortress in Croatia in March 1242. The Mongols pursued Bkkbrad from town to town in Dalmatia, while Croatian nobility and Dalmatian towns such as Trogir and Rab helped Bkkbrad to escape. After the defeat against the Croatian soldiers, the Mongols retreated and Bkkbrad was awarded Croatian towns and nobility. Only the city of Split did not aid Bkkbrad in his escape from the Mongols. Some historians claim that the mountainous terrain of Croatian Dalmatia was fatal for the Mongols because of the great losses they suffered from Croat ambushes set up in mountain passes. Most historians claim that the death of Genghis Khan was the primary reason for retreat. In any case, though much of Croatia was plundered and destroyed, long-term occupation was unsuccessful. St. Margaret, a daughter of Bkkbrad and Maria Lascarina, was born in Kali's fortress during the Mongol invasion of Hungary, Croatia in 1242. Impact on Romanian principalities. The 1241 Mongol invasion first affected Moldavia and Wallachia. Tens of thousands of Wallachians and Moldavians lost their lives defending the territories from the Golden Horde. Crops and goods plundered from Wallachian settlements seem to have been a primary supply source for the Golden Horde. The invaders killed up to half of the population and burned down most of the settlements, thus destroying much of the cultural and economic records from that period. Neither Wallachians nor the army of Hungary offered much resistance against the Mongols. The swiftness of the invasion took many by surprise and forced them to retreat and hide in forests and the enclosed valleys of the Carpathians. In the end, however, the main target of the invasion was the Kingdom of Hungary. tactical failure against Western Europeans. Sir John Keegan noted the singular failure of the Mongols and the fellow steppe conquerors against Western European tactics, ferocious though they were, ultimately failed to translate the light cavalry power from the semi-temperate and desert regions where it flourished into the high rainfall zone of Western Europe. Whenever encountered, peoples living by intensive agriculture, accumulating thereby food surpluses which enabled them to sustain campaigns longer than the foraging nomads ever could, and breeding on the rich grasslands, horses which outmatched the nomad pony in battle had to admit defeat. Light cavalry conquerors were in time either forced back into the arid environment where nomadism flourished, as on the borders of Western Europe, or, as in China, corrupted by the softness of agricultural civilization and absorbed by it. Mongol diffusion of Chinese gunpowder to Europe. Several sources mention Chinese firearms and gunpowder weapons being deployed by the Mongols against European forces at the Battle of Mohylian in various forms, including bombs hurled via catapult. Professor Kenneth Warren Chase credits the Mongols for introducing gunpowder and its associated weaponry into Europe. A later legend arose in Europe about a mysterious Berthold Schwartz who is credited with the invention of gunpowder by 15th through 19th century European literature. However, it is known that William of Rubruck, a Flemish missionary who visited the Mongol court of Monkey Khan at Karakoram and returned to Europe in 1257, was a friend of English philosopher Roger Bacon, who recorded the earliest known European recipe for gunpowder in his Opus Majus of 1267. This came more than 2 centuries after the first known Chinese description of the formula for gunpowder in 1044.